What's up, YouTube? This is Scott Seuss. We're back with another video, and today we're going to talk about how to find the perfect land to buy for homesteading. Okay, so the big question is, does it have insurable access? Just because you have a road on your property, it does not mean that you have right to access it. So, this is especially important in areas where land surrounding your property is public land. Forestry Service, Bureau of Land Management, Army Corps of Engineers, or your land has not been properly subdivided and platted. Large farm / ranch, divides are common, particularly out west, where I'm from. Make sure you will always have a right to access your property, and be certain that your right is not revocable under any circumstances. The guy next door over here, his property line is so messed up. His property goes around a city pond or a rural county pond. And it goes this way and back this way, and then way over here, behind my property, over there. It's a big jumble fuck. But there's roads on his property. Those roads that are on his property, they're just little dirt roads. But he has no right to access to any of those roads. People drive through his property all the time, four-wheeling, mud bogging, hunting, and he can't do nothing about it because it's not his land. The road is not his property. So make sure that you have the road on your property. Make sure it's yours. Excuse me. Okay, you need to make sure what covenants and restrictions apply to your property, obviously. Okay, for example, if you find a 30-acre property in southwestern Montana, it's say in Missoula, or we'll go with Missoula. One of the covenants was no more than 1 horse per 10 acres, and no other livestock allowed on your property. Well, your whole dream of having all this livestock and having this beautiful farm is out of the question because you only have 1 horse per 10 acres, so that gives you 3 horses. And then that includes the acre that your house is going to be sitting on. You have HOA to help pay for road management in some properties, but, HOA is not everywhere. The covenants to be gone through with a fine-tooth comb. This is a subject that's not really talked about on homesteading, and I thought I would bring it to your attention because this is something that you need to think about. Okay, so obviously, if you want 50 horses, the 10 acres, 1 horse per 10 acres is a deal breaker. Next big thing, do I have access to water? If you can get free water on your land, you can pump the water straight from the stream, the creek, the brook, the river, right to your land. Just get a ram pump, do some DIY PVC piping, and pump the water straight to your land. If you own the water, it's yours. Start a wind turbine, hydro turbine, and pump the stuff to your land, and that's water that you're going to pay for on your water bill. How deep does your well have to be? What's the regulations for your well? How much is your well going to cost? How much work is it going to take for them to put a well in? A typical well runs between $7,500 and $15,000. So, if you find a year-round creek on a spring on your property, and you have access to water without having to worry about it, that's great. But you need to make sure that you have water access or you have water rights. If you do have a stream, a brook, a creek, whatever, you make sure those rights belong to you. I know out west, like Arizona and stuff like that, a lot of people upstream will own that whole creek, and you don't have rights to anything with that creek. So you start this big establishment based on the water in your creek, but you legally can't use any of that. And you can be fined, and you can have your whole entire livestock situation ruined, your whole homestead ruined based on you don't own shit. Next question is, can you get into it? What about snow? You're going to have 15, 20 feet of snow to get to your property. How well is the road maintained? Are they privately maintained dirt roads? Do they have questionable access in the heat of the summer? Like, for example, when it starts raining, are you going to have a jacked up 4-wheel drive mud bog truck on 54-inch boggers just to drive through the woods to get to your property? Or you have to walk 20 miles, through snow with moccasins on your feet and dodge wolves trying to attack you just to get to your property. Okay, again, What are the minimum septic requirements? Because everywhere has septic requirements. No matter where you live at, you have to have some kind of septic. And you need to figure out, can I use a composting toilet? Can I use a septic tank? Can I just shit and put it where I want? Things you got to think about, especially like in Vermont, for example. Do you have any timber or mineral rights? It's also important. How close are you to town? Because if you have to drive 45 minutes through snow every time you go to Walmart or go to a grocery store to get your chicken some feed, or the Home Depot or Lowe's or wherever you get your fucking TLC, Tractor Supply, wherever you get your food at, excuse me, I can't think right now. But how close to town is it? And how far do you want to drive? That's something to think about also. Okay, so is your property large enough to meet all your goals now? If you start small. But what about, is your property big enough for all your goals in the future? If you only have a 1 acre plot of land and you got to build a house on it, that limits you to what access you have to do various things around your house. Now, is your neighbor's property for sale, or is there a house there? And if there's a house there, can you afford to buy that house, tear it down, and use his property to expand? Something to think about. Okay? So is your property developed? If it isn't, can it be developed? Or is 37% out of your 40 acres, is it woods and wetlands? Because if it's wetlands, you're going to be screwed. You can't really do much with wetlands except for let the wetlands be wet, And then it's also going to decrease the value of your home if you decide to get out of the homestead business and go on and live a regular life, your prior life. Are there any utilities nearby? If not, are there, alternative resources of power? How much will it cost for me to connect my power to the telephone pole on the road? Or will I have to run my telephone pole and wiring, 3,000 feet to my property? How much is that going to cost? Can I afford that? Make sure that you know about the utilities nearby and how you're going to go about getting power, unless you want to live like the Amish back in the 1800s or Wild Wild West days when you live by candlelight. Let's see. How are your neighbors in the community? Is your community crappy? Is it just a bunch of white trash, meth addicts all around you? It's going to be trying to come steal your anhydrous tanks? Are they going to try to steal parts of your tractor? Are they going to steal your chickens and your ducks and your pigs and your cows and your sheep? Is the neighbors decent people, or are they pieces of crap? Obviously, you don't want to live in a piece of crap area, especially if you're looking for incredibly remote properties, not being right next to the nearest community. Because if you see, personally, as an ex-felon, I feel like that I would rather rob you, be in the middle of nowhere, even though you might have a gun. I would have a better chance of not getting caught if I rob you in the middle of nowhere versus robbing you right down the road in the community. So, I'm not a robber, but I'm just saying, from that perspective. Can you procure wild game and fish on your property or nearby? Can you hunt? Can you fish? If you can, that's important, because that's food that you can have and that's food that you can eat without having to do a bunch of extra work to get that food. Do you need to finance? Okay, so then the question is, can you finance? So not all property is financeable. Not all mobile homes are financeable. Sure, you can go through a mortgage company through a mobile home, but you'll be lucky to get one, and they're going to charge you exorbitant prices. They're going to charge you triple, if not quadruple, the amount of money that you're going to need to finance it, if you can get financed at all. Another question is, buying lands backs up to water. You have to have so many square footage off the water that you can do anything with your property. If you go any closer, say if you live in a community that's on a lake, you go and do so much up to a certain distance from that water, and then the rest of that land from the stopping point to the shore of the water, you can't do shit. So something to think about also. Next question is, can you afford it? The biggest question. How far are you going to be stretched and try to pay this? Can you afford it? Do you have, if you're a couple, are you going to work? Your wife stays at home and does what she does. Is she going to work? You stay at home and do what you do. Are you going to take part-time jobs? Are you going to, just wing it and see what happens? You don't want to just wing it. You want to make sure you can afford it. Never buy something on top of your price range. Go somewhere in the middle. That way, if you have cash, it's fantastic. But if you don't have to put down a much of a down payment as possible, it makes a big difference when you have to put down this huge, 3 to 7% down payment, and then they're going to juice you, 19.7% APR financing on top of it, So make sure you can afford it. Okay, is a property free of any liens? Just because you look like your property is free of liens, you need to make sure you investigate and make sure your property has no liens on it, because you're going to be the one to sell them. Especially coming from private sellers, they can have liens on them. Anyone who has the mortgage has liens. So, once you pay for it, then you need to pay the lien off yourself. All right, so is it in the area of runoff? Pollution is a big deal, obviously. Climate change, global warming, pollution, with all the fields being sprayed with chemical fertilizers, herbicides, and pesticides. You have an issue of, is your farm upstream from you? Is those herbicides, pesticides, chemical fertilizers being run off into the creek that's growing your stream, going to your house, and you're using that creek to grow your homestead? Is your water basically poisoned with chemicals? Something to think about also. Consider future potential hazards, like mudslides, wildfires, are you in a floodplain? Is the soil prone to erosion? Simple things like that is common sense, but you should actually look at those. Also, another big thing you really should do is look at the soil composition. What kind of condition is the soil in? Can you grow corn, or is it just ruined? Get a land survey. Always get a land survey. That way you know where your boundaries are at. Most land surveys are, 10 years old or older, so you need to get a land survey. If it's too good to be true, especially Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, land forums, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. Don't do it. Just go with something that you can actually verify. And those are basically, the best tips I can give you. I hope that it all works out for you, and I'm going to end this video now. And live simple, my guy. Good luck.